bu session'ı. Sonrasında sorularınız olursa lütfen bizimle de irtibata geçin. Daha detaylı konuşacağız zamanlarımız olacak bu ürünle alakalı. Bugün sadece ürünle ne yaptığını kısaca bahsetmeye çalışacağız. Lansman gibi düşünebilirsiniz. Şöyle bir giriş yapayım. Ben Armis'le alakalı. Armis ürünü ajan kullanmadan tüm cihazların güvenliğini sağlıyor bizler aslında. Tüm cihazlar, yani IoT tarafı, OT tarafı, medikal taraf, IT olsun hiç fark etmez. Aslında fokuslandığı nokta şurası. Birçok işletme ortamındaki cihazların %40'ından fazlasını monitör edemiyor işletmeler. Yani aslında cihazların yönetemediği gibi riskleri de bilmediği için güvenliğini sağlayamıyor diye düşünüyoruz. Genelde de zaten çoğunlukla da böyle. Ve her yıl sonunda da bahsedeceklerdir muhakkak. %35 oranlarında da artarak büyüyor, bu devam ediyor. Ve riskler de daha fazla, çok daha fazla artarak, katlanarak devam ediyor. Şimdi Armis ortamdaki tüm cihazları keşfederek riskleri, tiplerini, özelliklerini ayrıştırarak belirttiğiniz kurallar çerçevesinde hem cihazlarınızı yönetmeyi sağlıyorsunuz hem de güvenliğini sağlamış oluyorsunuz bu noktada. Şimdi hani yönetebildiğiniz cihazlara bir nebze güvenliğinin ne olduğunu, hani ne tip cihazlar olduğunu, yani fisk geçmeseniz bile biliyorsunuz, ama asıl dünya unmanagement tarafı, fark edilmeyen cihazların oluşturduğu bizim için riskler. Çok fazla olduğu için aslında bunların üzerinde biraz daha fazla konuşacağız. Normal bir IT yönetiyor da olsanız bile kullanılan IoT cihazlarının fazlalığı bile ortamdaki riskleri arttırmaya yetiyor aslında. Nasıl çalışıyor architecture'ı, afterworks kısımlarını Jill bize anlatacak hepsini. Sunumlarda da, videoda da hepsini gösterecek. Demoda da. Ben şimdi sözü Armis'teki arkadaşlara bırakıyorum. Dediğim gibi sorularınız olursa Armis'e soracağım soruları soru bölümünden bize ulaştırabilirsiniz. Armis'teki arkadaşlara soruruz hepsini. Umarım faydalı bir sunum olur hepimiz için. Teşekkür ederim şimdilik. Now, Jill, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Kenan. Thank you very much. So I really appreciate you all to be here with us today. We are going to have a short presentation and after that a short demo on Armis. Feel free to ask any questions you have. You can ask in English and I will answer, or in Turkish, and Kenan will help and translate with that. I'll try to go slowly, but if something doesn't make sense, you have any questions, please feel free to stop me and ask whatever you have to ask. So let's dive in a bit about Armis, because you know we have many different cybersecurity startups and everybody says something else. So Armis started its journey 5 years ago, and we started with the American market. We already deployed in 20 companies from the Fortune 100. About 9 months ago, Insight Partners and Capital G invested $1.1 billion in Armis. So it just makes sense what size of company we are. We are spread in almost all companies there is, and we are about 400 employees. The last number that is very significant is the number of the devices that we can see. We can see its behavior. We can see what different things they do in the network, and it builds our knowledge base. This is a very important thing, and I will come back to that later. So what is why we have Armis? What is the challenges? What is the issues that we have? And actually this slide summarizes the most of it. We have an explosion of numbers of devices that we have in our network. It's everywhere. Those are the managed devices that we have, the servers, the tablets, the devices that we bring from home, different smart watches and smartphones, and also many unmanaged, uneditable devices that we have in our environment. For example, in the IT environment, we have the VoIPs, the switches, the printers, the smart TVs, the security camera. In the OT environment, we have the PLC, the SCADA, the robots. In the medical devices, we have the ultrasound machine, the crash carts, smart medical sensors. We have more and more cloud assets and more virtual machines. Our buildings and offices are smart offices with smart air conditioning and smart lighting, and everything is connected to the network. Most of those devices are editable. We cannot deploy agent on them, and it makes a bit challenging to secure them, to see them in the network, etc. So those are the main 4 challenges and difficulties that we get as a feedback from our customers. The first one is asset inventory, and again, mainly we are addressing big companies with big network, so they can see exactly what they have in their network, what kind of unmanaged devices, what are the different applications that they have on their managed devices like computers and servers. If all the computers that they have in their corporate environment have the EDR agent, etc., etc. The visibility is very poor, and there is no one system that can show the full visibility in it. Network segmentation is very important, but again, in big companies, very difficult to reach full segmentation. It also misses the device-to-device communication. If, for example, you have a printer connected to your corporate device with a wire, and then it opens a hotspot or Bluetooth, and then other device from other segment can connect to it. So it can see behavior as well. Vulnerability management like Rapid7, Nessus, and the others are also important tools, but there are environments that are not allowed to be scanned. It doesn't scan any shadow networks. Sometimes it's blocked by firewalls. And again, it can show you just a snapshot, just a picture of a certain second that the scan was done in your network. It's not a continuous and real-time solution. And the last thing is the incident and response. So when we have in big organization, when you have an alert, something bad that happens, and your SOC brings you this information, shows you the kind of alert you have, in big organization, it's going to take a lot of time, significant time to understand what kind of device it is, where it is located, in what network, in what geographical area. And before Armis, our biggest customers told us that it took sometimes hours to days to just identify what kind of IP address was shown in their SOC. If there are any questions, please feel free to stop and ask. So few maybe foundings that we had. So in many of the organizations, they have a guest Wi-Fi network that they don't monitor. And many times the different tablets that they have in their conference room and smart TVs are connected to this guest network that is not monitored. They can get a malware or something like that. And then we found more than one tablets that streams audio and video out of the organization through this guest Wi-Fi network. Botnets and security cameras, often, again, we see them combined together. There were one organization where we had a POC that we hadn't success of finding printers connected to the corporate network with open hotspot. It's like an endless battle. It's always there. In the manufacturing area, maybe the most important thing to say is that cybersecurity is not the most important thing in manufacturing, okay? The availability, the manufacturing is the most important thing. So many times we see shadow laptops, different connections to the internet that shouldn't be there. Many times customer gets Industry 4.0 brand new machine with a lot of smart components inside, and not always he understands what kind of connectivity those smart components has. Very similar problem in the hospitals when you have many medical devices that you cannot deploy a security agent on it. Many devices that are moving from place to place, like all the crash carts of the doctors. And you also have a huge building BMS, building management system in those hospitals. So it's not just the medical devices network, it's also the OT devices network, and of course, all the regular IT environment. We can go and explain further about the different threats in those environments of medical and OT, but I think that you got the main message. Any questions till now, please? Okay, so if there are no questions, we'll move to the explanation about Armis. So Armis is a fully passive, agentless security platform. So we don't deploy any endpoints on any computers and something like that. We are passive. We don't do any active scanning. We are real-time and continuous. And we do it in 3 steps. The first and the most important is the base of the pyramid, and this is the discovery stage. So we discover all devices, managed, unmanaged, IoT, medical, OT, in every vertical there is. We show and discover what kind of device it is, what is the brand, the model, what kind of operation system or firmware, what kind of application it has, serial numbers, where it's located, when we saw it the first time, when we saw it the last time, who is it talking to, how often, a lot of information, very important information that also could be exported, for example, to different CMDBs if the customer has such CMDB. The second step and the second layer of the pyramid is the risk management. So again, passively in real-time and continuous way, Armis shows what are the possible vulnerabilities of those devices, what are the CVEs, the relevant CVEs of those components and devices. Any device gets an adaptive risk scoring that updates all the time. We also can manage risk-based policies and even help with auto-segmentation through different integrations that we have, and I will discuss it in the next bullet. The third part and the top of the pyramid is the detection and response. And this is the part when we inspect and analyze and see different issues and threats and problems, anomalies. So the main 3 things that we can analyze is different signatures, ransomwares, SQL injections, etc. The second thing is policy violations, and there are dozens of policies that Armis brings and deploy at the beginning, and then of course we can always adjust and add more policies. And the last thing is anomaly detection. So we have our knowledge base and we know how those devices should act. And through a comparison to this knowledge base, we can see if there are any abnormal behavior, something strange, and then we can respond. So how does a passive platform response? We do it through integration to the infrastructure of our customers. So the first thing we can, of course, give an alert in our system. The second thing we can do is to send this alert as a syslog to the SIEM or the SOC that our customer has. We also can open a ticket in a ticketing system. We can update a quarantine policy in or a rule in a firewall, integration, and again, quarantine through a NAC to put the high-risk device in other VLAN, for example. We have integration to wireless LAN controllers, where we can disconnect the device from the Wi-Fi network. We can trigger a vulnerability scanner to make the scan in a certain second when something happens, and not just once in 2 weeks or once in a month. Okay, any questions till now, please? Kenan, maybe you have a question.
We haven't questioned any.
No questions.
Yes.
Okay.
You can go on.
Okay, great. So, as you understood, we have a very large knowledge base, and this knowledge base is maybe the largest differentiator of Armis from other solutions. It's huge. It's almost 400 million devices. It's growing every day, and currently we have about 15 million profiles. And those profiles of those behaviors helps us in a few different ways. So the first thing, they help us to understand what kind of devices we have and we see in the environment of our customers. So we see the traffic, and in the next slide we'll explain how we get the traffic. But we see the traffic, and through analyze of this traffic, we can compare it to the profiles we have, and then understand what are the devices we have in this environment, like full discovery. The second thing that we do with this knowledge base is to understand if there are some outliers, some devices that act differently from the way we see it in other places in the world. So if there is a camera that instead of approaching the camera's server, it tries to go out of the organization, or it tries to connect to other devices with different ports, we will see that and we will alert about that. Okay, so we have one more attendee. It's Adam. Can you please add Adam?
You are host, Jill.
Yeah.
You can
You
add.
have to do it, Gil.
Yeah, already. Okay, I did it already.
Yes.
And
Adam,
I will.
join to us.
Yeah, Adam, can you speak?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. So Adam is our solution architect, and he will proceed on the technical side from the perspective of how we are deployed, and he will show the demo. Please proceed, Adam.
Perfect. Thank you, Gil. So the way we basically deployed in Armis is we take a collector. It doesn't matter whether it's a physical collector or if it's a virtual appliance or a VM. We can supply OVA as well. We deploy that and the collector in the network, and the collector takes 3 inputs. The first main input, of course, is the span. We try to get as much traffic as we can, both from south to north, but also east to west, because sometimes you have devices that communicate only within the network. And if we don't see that traffic as well, we won't be able to actually see them and present them on the console. Now, the second input that we take is integration with the WLC. The integration with WLC gives us basically access to the access points, where we can look at the logs of the access points in the network. That gives us visibility, better visibility to all the wireless devices and wireless activity. But also, we can see the off-network devices as well in the network. Now, the third input that we take is the SNMP read-only credentials. That gives us visibility to also layer 2. Some packets we get only layer 3, and having SNMP read-only integration gives us access to the ARP tables, and then we can match basically the layer 2 of those packets as well. So we can have better visibility to the packets that has only layer 3. Now, all this traffic, all this input that we take into the collector, we analyze locally. We don't keep any important details. We don't keep anything, basically. We just take the metadata and we send it to the cloud. And as Gil mentioned, the metadata includes MAC address, IP address, any behavior patterns, and so on. And in the cloud, we take all this data and we compare it to what we have in the knowledge base. And this is how we can better identify the devices. We can say whether it's, for example, what's the type of the device, what's the category, and then we can also give better risk assessment of the device. So the amount of traffic that we send to the cloud is up to 10,000 to 1, a ratio from the traffic that we get into the collector. And having 2 instances, one in the cloud and one in the network of the client, enable us basically to integrate with products, with other products, whether are in the network or on the cloud, it doesn't really matter. So it's really easy for us to integrate with lots of different solutions. Any questions on that? Okay, before I go on, I just want to stress out again, this is completely passive. We don't install any agent on any of the devices in the network. So this is just passively monitoring the span and getting all these details from the different integrations. And this is how we show all the different information, all the devices that we'll see in the second in the demo. Now, Armis basically, now that it has all the different information that we take from the traffic, we can also collect different telemetries from all the different products that the client has in his network. So for example, we can pull more information on specific EDRs in the network and present them in Armis as well. We can also take, for example, data from cloud providers in AWS, in GCP and Azure. We can also integrate. We have 2 ways integration basically with any vulnerability management tools. For example, if we take Rapid7, we can take the different vulnerabilities also that we found and just match them to what we have and have better identification of the vulnerabilities of the devices in the network. We can also, the other way of integration, we can also trigger any scan of the vulnerability scanner. And this is important for cases, sometimes a device doesn't get scanned if it's not part of the network in the weekly scans that the scanner is running. So you want to make sure that if you have a new device joining a specific subnet in your network and it wasn't scanned, so you can trigger the scanner in the same second, just to make sure that you don't have any devices on your network that are not scanned. So this is just a couple of examples of what we have on the network and from part of the integrations. So yeah, I think now I can.
I'll make you host now, Adam. Just 1 second.
I think I'm already a host, Gil. So
Okay.
I can share a screen. Yeah.
Okay.
So any questions so far before I continue to the demo? Okay. And of course, feel free to ask anything. So basically, it doesn't matter if we have one collector or if we have many. All the different collector reports to one server, and we present everything here in the console. So the way we look basically on the data and the way we slice the data that we present is we divide it to physical locations. So each collector could present a different location, for example. So if we have a site in Switzerland and then we have a site in US, you can decide to focus on one site and see just the data in this specific site. We also have logical boundaries. So the way we configure the boundaries is based on SSIDs, if we have integrations with any WLC, or based on subnets of your network. So for example, if I take the subnet of corporate, or if I have SSIDs for guest, so that puts the devices into these specific boundaries, and then I can decide to focus on a specific boundary only. Now we keep the data up to 90 days back of everything that the devices did on the network. So we can go back and do root cause analysis 90 days back to what the device did on the network. So here in the top, you have the total number of devices that we found in the network, how many high-risk devices we have, and I'll show you in a second what it means, a high-risk device. And here on the right, you have all the different alerts that were aggregated. Of course, this is relevant for all the different sites and boundaries, but if I decide to focus, for example, just on the corporate boundary, they will see the alerts that are relevant only for corporate. So that's basically the power of having these logical and physical boundaries. Now, here we have also, that's the main dashboard. Everything here is completely customized. You can create multiple dashboards and have different reports. It's really easy to create these reports. I'll show you a few examples in a few minutes, how you create these reports. But you can also click on each entity on each column here on the graph, or you can just click on the graph and to see just all the devices, basically how we build this query. So this is how we save the report. So any questions so far, what we've seen here? Okay, so let me show you, for example, how we use this search bar to search for whatever we want in this network. So let's say I want to look only for devices that are of category computer, right? So it's very easy to get all the different computer devices. So let's say I want to sort them by risk, and then I want to second sort by alerts. So let's say I see a device, for example, a computer called Ami Rodriguez computer. So let's dig in and see what we can, what's the type of information we see on each device. So of course we see all the different metadata. We see the name of the device, MAC address, IP address, the user. This is, of course, we can choose not to present it and not to send it to the cloud. So if in case of GDPR compliance, but this is also something we can present. We can see the type and category of the device, and this is based on the traffic analysis and all the metadata analysis. So we can show, based on the knowledge base and the traffic, what is the specific type and category, also the model and manufacturer. So this is just an example. We can also, based on the network activity, present present to you the applications that has on the device, right? So now having all these details of applications and operating systems and what's the hardware of the device, we can give you all the different potentials, vulnerabilities that the device has in the network. And for each vulnerability, we can also see more details about it. And everything that you see here, every detail, you can also search for it after that on the queries, and I'll show you some examples for how we search for other stuff, other entities than just devices.
I have a question, Adam,
Yes, please.
about vulnerabilities.
About what? Sorry.
Vulnerability. So
Yes.
you can click. Okay. Which database does it from check for vulnerabilities?
So the database we pull from is NIST. We
NIST.
can also
National Vulnerability Database. Okay.
Yeah, we also give you a link.
You only use NVD and use another database.
I think we use some other database. I'm not sure about their what are they, but yes, that's not the only one. But this is a vast enough database to use.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any more questions about that? Okay. Let me show you also the risk factors. So risk factors are basically a list of everything that Armis knows about the device based on its history, based on its behavior, based on the knowledge base. So for example, if it has any external connectivity that it shouldn't have, so that raised as a risk factor. If it used any invalid certificate in the network, that will be raised as a risk factor. And the total risk factor score will be a weighted average of all these different risk factors that we saw here. And this gives you a sense, basically, if a device is a high risk or medium risk, and then you can go and choose to focus, for example, on the corporate boundary, show me only the high risk devices, and then you can just focus and see what are the issues that Armis detected in regards to this specific device. So now I want to show you, before I continue to the other properties here, I want to jump specifically to another type of device, which is not a computer, because as you know, Armis detects any device. It doesn't matter whether it's IT or OT or medical or IoT. So let's go, for example, to inventory. Let's focus, for example, on corporate. Now, here I see the different types that I have only within corporate. And let's say I'm choosing imaging. Now, imaging has either IP cameras and printers. And let's pick one IP camera, for example. So, of course, we have also risk factors. This specific device doesn't have any vulnerabilities. But we see the risk factors. We also see applications. It has Android browser 1.0. We see the connections as well. So this is something we see also for IP cameras and not only computers. If it has any Wi-Fi connection, so we'll see that here as well. We can see the amount of traffic. We have much more details on each connection. We can also see the activities, and activities is the smallest resolution of information that we have for every device in the network. And again, we keep it up to 90 days back. And that includes any TCP connections on every port, includes any application usage, any DNS query, any connection error, everything that we track, we put it here. So you can go back and analyze it and search for any evidence that you're looking for any device in the network. We also keep services and traffic. Now, services is the services that the device is reaching out to, and this is very important because, for example, in IP camera, so IP camera usually reach out only to internal services. So you want to see if the device has reached out to any external service, any external domain, and if it does, you can alert on that very easily. You can also see, for example, if you have a specific service that this device has reached out in a high volume of traffic, that could be also a suspicious sign. For example, here you can see that there is an anomaly of this traffic. So you can go to this specific day and see what happened, what's the volume of traffic, and what's the device and host that relates to this specific service. Now, that's also true for traffic. So for example, an IP camera should talk in specific ports and protocols. And if it uses any uncommon port or protocol for an IP camera, that could be an alert. That would be something suspicious that we can track and see here. So this is basically the different information that we can see on different devices. But what's really strong about Armis is that we can look for almost everything. So for example, let's take an example from the medical world. If I want to see, show me all the different devices that speak over port, let's say 104. 104 is a DICOM port. So I want to see all the different devices that talk in DICOM. And we can see here what's the volume of traffic that we've seen in like up to 90 days back again. And if I click on the link here, I get the list of 32 devices that are using DICOM. So this is one thing we can do. We can also track, and of course I can look at the list and see if there is any suspicious device that shouldn't be here. I can also look for applications.
Adam,
yes.
There is one question in the chat. Guy called ATF wishes to, guy or lady called ATF wishes to
Yes.
know where does those vulnerabilities and risks info come from?
That's a good question. So basically the vulnerabilities, we take it from the external database NIST, but we can pull this information because we know the applications and operating systems and the hardware on the device. So we can know which vulnerability to present. But as for the risk factors, so the risk factors are basically everything, again, that Armis knows about the device. So if it's based on the history, this is basically an Armis entity. So we set the risk factors and we give it the scores based on the knowledge base that we have and based on the other devices that we already know from different clients. But based on the activity of the device and its history and everything we know about the device, or maybe its manufacturer reputation, for example, everything that we know, we attach it, we associate it to a specific device, and then we calculate the risk level of the device and we present it. Did that answer the question? Okay, perfect. So if I go on with my search bar here, we can see that we have, I can look for applications, for example. So again, Armis can present all the different applications that are running in the network, and of course, only those who has some network activity. So you can get this list of applications, and here as well, you can click on the device and you click on the link here and get the list of devices that has a specific application. And of course, this is important. For example, if I want to migrate from one EDR to another, I want to make sure that all of my computers install this application. I can use this report. I can, for example, if I choose, let's say CrowdStrike version 5.31. So I click here, I get 766 devices that has this application. So I can also save this search and call it CrowdStrike CrowdStrike computers, and then I can choose to present it, or I can also send it to my email on daily basis, weekly basis. So that gives me a track of how many computers installed this application. Another thing, so I can also search for activities. So let's say I want to look for an interesting use cases every time that someone used WebEx. So I can look for activities, and then I have activity type. So I look for application usage. And let's say I'm interested only in device that has operating system, Windows, and let's say only risk level that is medium and high. And of course, this risk level is based on the risk factors that we found. So, and I want it for only WebEx. So here you can see that I get 393 activities where a device in my network used WebEx. I can also see a heat map. So I can see exactly when they use this WebEx. I can click on each time, hour, each slot and day to go there and see specific devices that used it. So if I have this specific application, maybe not relevant for this query, but it could be other application that shouldn't be used outside of the working hours. So I can go and look for them here as well. From this point, I can also create a policy. So if I click here on create a policy, every time that I have a device using WebEx, I can do different activities. I can do different actions, sorry. I can either create an alert. I can either relate it, associate it to a specific boundary. I can give it a tag or untag the device. And I can also do active actions. For example, I can block using WLC that I have, or I can block using my Palo Alto network firewall. Or as I said, as I discussed about this use case earlier, I can also launch an expose or a quality scan if I want. I can also push a ticket to ServiceNow if I have this integration. So this is just small examples of the different actions that I can do. But it depends on the integration. We can do more. And I see there's another question. Let me see. Let me read the question for a second. Did Armis gather installed CrowdStrike machines? So yes, let me show you, for example, a device that has CrowdStrike and what type of information we see about these devices. So let's take any computer. I can see that I have the regular information. I have the MAC address, the IP address. I have its name, but I also have. So here I have integration with the Jamf and CrowdStrike, but I see the device ID. I can scroll down and here see the security attributes. For example, if the CrowdStrike device control is disabled, I can see when was the last time that the CrowdStrike management system saw this device. So I can also create easily a query to show me all the different devices, for example, that connected to CrowdStrike that didn't connect to CrowdStrike in the past week. So this is something I can create. I can have a report sent to me on a weekly basis. I can create alerts. I can do whatever I want to do with all these different capabilities here on the dashboard. I see that, okay, I see that it answered your question, perfect. So we've seen the dashboard, we've talked about the inventory, we've dived in a little bit into devices. Now let me show you the alerts and maybe we can pick up an alert and see what we can do with it. So let's take, for example, the threat detect. So here, this is an example of how it looks like an alert. In Armis, you have what are the potential causes for these alert. You have clickable links here for example, user agent for attacker, you can click on that. You can go and see what is the, click on the attacker, and let me open that tab. So I get a link to the attacker device, which is a Galaxy tab. I can also click on the victim device and see what's the victim. I have the matching activity here, but what's really nice here is that in that case, I can also show content, and then I can download the pickup file that to actually see and investigate this specific SQL injection. I just want to stress out, we don't keep any raw data, we don't keep packets. Only if we see something like SQL injection, we send this specific raw packet so the user could download the packet and investigate furthermore. But this is just one of the cases where we upload the packet. You can also choose not to upload this packet if it's if something you're not interested in. So it won't be kept in the cloud. Now, we can also, from this part, we can take actions. We can quarantine a device. So based on the integration, we can do that as well. Suppress, resolve, or silence alert. This is just management actions for these alerts. So this is just an example. So we have three types of alerts. We have the anomaly alert. So based on the knowledge base that we have, if we saw a device behaving differently than what we expected based on the knowledge base, we're going to present an alert. And an example for that is if we have PLC, they shouldn't communicate outside of the internet. So that will be detected as anomaly of a device connected to the internet. So this is one thing. The second type of alerts that we have is any policy violations, policies that we created. And I just want to mention that every time we deploy a product, we deploy Armis in a network of a client, we also give it with a pool of default policies. These are the policies that are used the most in other clients. So the best practice policies. We can obviously help during the POC, we help to create more policies that are relevant for the specific use cases, or we can support after full deployment as well. And the third type of alerts is any threat activity. So if we find any malware or stuff like that, we also present that based on signatures of the attacks. Now, after talking about alerts, so we've seen the policies. Here is just a really small example of 11 policies, but the pool of policies are around 40 policies in total that we supply, but we also give much more during the POC and during full deployment. And the reports is where we keep the list of the dashlets where you can put in the dashboards. Here as well, we provide basic dashboards, basic reports, but you can easily create more reports if needed. And here on the right, you have a schedule where you can also decide to send it to a specific email on a specific time of the week. I think this is pretty much what I wanted to present in the console. I would love to have more questions, specific questions if you have, and I would love to answer.
Adam,
yes.
Maybe we can talk a little bit about integration. What kind of integration are made in which products, for example?
So we have, that's a good question. We have different integrations and different tools. So again, we have, for example, vulnerability scanners. So we have two ways of integration with vulnerability scanners. We can pull information from the vulnerability scanners, or we can trigger the scans of those vulnerability scanners based on policies or based on activities that we configure here in Armis. We also have integration with Checkpoint. So for example, Checkpoint uses Armis as a discovery tool. They pull all the different devices that has in Armis, and then using the rules you can create rules in checkpoint firewall in the management console that are not based on IPs or subnet, but it's based on category or function or manufacturer of the device. So I can, for example, create a policy that all of my IP cameras shouldn't access outside. So we block my IP cameras from reaching out to the internet. Other different integration that we have are CMDBs. So we have, for example, a client that populates Armis from all these different resources into one database. So he takes all the different information that he has in CMDB and put it here in Armis. You can also choose to do the opposite. You just send from Armis to the CMDB and populate the information in the CMDB. And again, we also have integration with the EDRs to populate more information and have better slice and dice capabilities here in Armis to match, for example, all the different activities against the EDR management tool and have it here as well in Armis. I hope it answers the question.
I can add to that at the pre-sale stage, we understand the gaps, the difficulties, and the relevant use cases for every customer. We have more than 150 integrations that we can do. And through the questionnaire or the initial meetings, we understand the gaps, and then we prepare we fit the relevant suit to every customer through those integrations. Regarding the question from ATF, thank you for all of your questions. Yes, on our website, you can see some of the integrations.
Guys, do you have any more questions?
I think no.
It would be great if ATF can present himself in a few words. The questions were good, so just would be great to understand. Are you an end customer, a partner? Dennis Bank is a bank, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Latif. Okay, Adam, can you please stop sharing? Guys, thank you very much for thank you very much for joining us for this session. Please feel free to contact ITWay or us for any other questions. Sorry that we couldn't do it in Turkish. Unfortunately, I don't speak Turkish yet. Maybe for next time, I'll take it as a homework. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much Yelen Adam. Çok teşekkür ederiz katılımlarınız için. Herhangi bir sorunuz olursa bizimle irtibata geçin lütfen. Çok teşekkürler. İyi haftalar dilerim.